I always trusted my instincts, but lately, those instincts felt like a quiet storm raging inside me. Every time Paul's phone lit up at night, my gut twisted in ways I couldn't ignore. He used to tell me everything, the little stories, the silly complaints, but now his laughter sounded hollow and his excuses were wearing thin. I'd lie there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, replaying every suspicious glance and every sigh that didn't belong to me. There was this tightness in my chest that no amount of deep breathing could loosen. Each small clue was like a puzzle piece I couldn't turn away from, and I was done pretending they didn't fit together. One evening, while he was in the shower, I felt my heart pounding so loud I thought he might hear it through the walls. My hands were shaking as I reached for his phone, telling myself I was ready for whatever I might find. What stared back at me wasn't just a message, it was a catalog of betrayal. Photos I'd never taken, words I'd never heard him say. Each one was a dagger, slicing through the story I thought we'd been writing together. I read them again and again, each line cutting deeper, each photo shattering another piece of the life I thought we had. But instead of exploding in fury, I felt this strange, icy calm settle over me. I didn't rush into the bathroom or throw the phone at him. I saved every screenshot, every damning piece of proof, knowing I'd need them for later. It wasn't forgiveness. It was the kind of peace that comes from knowing exactly what you're going to do next. I couldn't undo his betrayal, but I could decide how this story would end. So I sat there on the edge of the bed, my breath steady, and my heart already crafting a plan. His betrayal wouldn't break me. It would be his own undoing. I spent the next few days in a haze, my mind racing in quiet circles. Every time he smiled at me, I wondered how deep the lies ran. I'd catch glimpses of him lost in thought, a flicker of something like guilt in his eyes, but he never said a word. I became an actress in my own home, playing the role of the devoted wife while my heart was already planning an exit. Each time he kissed my forehead, I felt the sting of those photos behind my eyes, a silent reminder of the truth he thought I'd never see. I started to notice the small details, the way he'd flinch when his phone buzzed, how he'd turn away to answer it with a practiced casualness. I saw it all. Every little tell, every twitch of his lips when he thought I wasn't looking. I wondered if he knew I was watching, if he could feel the weight of my quiet judgment pressing in on him. But he never looked me in the eye for long, and I took that as my silent advantage. He didn't realize it yet, but I wasn't the same woman he'd lied to all those nights. Every day, I saved a little more of myself from him. I gathered the screenshots like seeds I'd plant later, each one a testament to what he'd done. It was almost poetic, the way his own secrets would one day become the story that unraveled him. I didn't cry anymore. I didn't beg for answers or chase explanations he'd never give. I was done being the woman who waited for scraps of honesty. In that quiet defiance, I found a power I didn't know I had. And I knew, in my bones, in my breath, that his betrayal would be his own undoing. There were nights when I lay awake, feeling the weight of his secrets pressing down on me. In those moments, the silence was deafening. No more illusions, no more excuses. I realized how long I'd been holding my breath, waiting for him to come clean, to offer some small truth to ease the ache. But he never did, and that silence became my answer. I started to see our marriage for what it really was, a careful performance, one he thought I'd never see through. I began to imagine the day I'd reveal it all, the day his lies would finally catch up to him. I could see it so clearly, the room, the looks on everyone's faces, the truth laid bare like a wound. I didn't want to scream or throw things. No, I wanted him to see it in my eyes, to feel the weight of what he'd done in the quiet shame of a crowded room. That's how I'd take my power back, not through anger, but through the calm certainty of knowing. So I let him keep thinking he was in control, let him believe I was still the woman he could lie to and walk away from. But inside, I was done with his half-truths and empty promises. I was done being the one who kept his secrets safe. I decided his betrayal would be his own undoing, and I knew exactly how I'd make sure of it. When the family gathering rolled around, I slipped into the role of the perfect wife again. Everyone was so excited, wrapped up in the holiday cheer, and I played along like nothing was wrong. The smell of cinnamon and pine filled the house, and laughter echoed through the halls. My sister-in-law fussed over the decorations while the kids ran circles around the tree, their giggles lighting up the room. In that sea of warmth and twinkling lights, I held onto my secret like a talisman, a quiet power I carried close to my chest. The moment I drew Paul's name for Secret Santa, it felt like fate itself had handed me a chance. I could almost hear the universe whispering in my ear, telling me this was the moment I'd been waiting for. I acted surprised, letting out a little laugh, even as my heart pounded with the weight of what I planned to do. I watched Paul from across the room, his easy smile fooling everyone but me. He had no idea that the woman standing by the fireplace, handing out cookies and warm wishes, was already writing the final act of his perfect performance. I took my time crafting his gift, wrapping it with care and precision. An elegant box tied with a red satin bow. It looked harmless, almost sweet. But inside were the screenshots and photos that would tear his lies wide open. Each piece of paper was a confession he didn't know he'd made, a truth he could never hide again. I tucked it under the tree with the other gifts, my smile unwavering. He thought this was just another holiday, but for me, it was the start of something else entirely. I kept my voice light and cheerful as I moved through the room, catching up with family and sharing stories of the past year. But inside, every glance I threw Paul's way was another silent promise. He didn't seem to notice the difference in my smile, too caught up in the comfort of routine, too confident in his own little world. He thought he was safe, surrounded by people who loved him, people who'd never believe he could betray someone the way he had. But I knew better, and soon enough, so would they. My hands didn't shake as I passed around the drinks, offering mulled wine and cider to everyone gathered by the fire. I had learned how to wear my calm like armor, how to keep my rage folded neatly beneath a cozy sweater and a warm laugh. The weight of that box under the tree was almost soothing, a reminder that I wasn't just playing the part anymore. I was in control of how this story ended. And for the first time in months, I felt almost at peace. I watched Paul out of the corner of my eye, saw the way he threw his head back in laughter, how he wrapped an arm around his brother's shoulders like nothing in the world could touch him. He didn't know that every word he spoke was another step closer to the moment I'd pull the rug out from under him. I let him have this night of easy joy because I knew what was coming. I knew that soon, his world would crack wide open, and all those lies he'd told would come spilling out for everyone to see. As the night went on, I found myself drifting between conversations, my mind already picturing the moment to come. I laughed at the right jokes, asked about everyone's holiday plans, but underneath it all, I was counting down the minutes. I caught Paul's eye once or twice, just enough for him to see me, to feel my calm gaze that held more truth than any smile ever could. He didn't see it yet, but I was done pretending. I moved through the room like it was a stage, every hug and every toast another layer to the mask I wore. My nieces tugged at my hands, asking me to join them in their little games, and I let their laughter wash over me, grounding me in this final act. The box under the tree waited patiently, its weight a promise only I could understand. For everyone else, tonight was just another family gathering. For me, it was the prologue to the real story. When I looked at Paul, I didn't see the man I'd married anymore. I saw the stranger he'd become, the liar I was about to expose. I didn't feel small or scared. I felt ready to give him a gift he'd never forget. The day he thought would be filled with joy and family warmth would become the day he'd never be able to erase. And as I watched the firelight dance in his eyes, I knew this was only the beginning. The house was filled with the soft glow of Christmas lights and the warm buzz of family chatter. Everywhere I looked, there was laughter. The clink of glasses, the rustle of wrapping paper, the sweet smell of sugar cookies baking in the oven. I moved through the room like I belonged there, my smile never slipping, my voice as gentle as the music playing in the background. No one suspected a thing. No one saw the quiet storm brewing just beneath my calm surface. I watched Paul hold court in the living room, his laughter easy and warm, the perfect host in the perfect setting. He moved between conversations, his hand brushing mine in passing, his eyes soft with a practiced affection. But when he looked at me, really looked, He must have seen something different in my gaze. I didn't flinch or look away. I let him see the steady calm of someone who already knew everything and was done being lied to. It was the smallest of victories, but it felt like everything to me. I kept busy, handing out plates of cookies and refilling drinks, hugging my nieces and nephews and listening to their stories. The air was thick with holiday cheer, and I let it wrap around me like a warm blanket. But underneath it all, there was a tightness in my chest, a pulse of adrenaline that wouldn't quiet. The box under the tree sat there, waiting, and I knew, when the time came, it would change everything. I let the night unfold, each smile and clink of glasses another note in the song we were all pretending to sing together. My mother-in-law fussed over the kids' sweaters. My brother-in-law told the same story he always did about Christmas past, and the smell of cinnamon and pine filled every corner of the room. It was cozy, warm, a picture of a family at its happiest. But I was the only one who knew that the real story hadn't even begun yet. Every time Paul glanced my way, there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Maybe guilt, maybe suspicion. But he never said a word, and I never gave him a reason to. My smile never faltered. My laughter blended in perfectly with everyone else's. But inside, I felt the crackle of something electric, a calm readiness that steadied my hands and kept my voice smooth. I didn't need to shout to be heard. The truth would speak for itself soon enough. I took a moment to step outside, the cold air biting at my cheeks, the stars bright and unfeeling above me. I let the chill sink in, grounding me in the moment. I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't even angry, not in that wild, consuming way I'd been before. I was something else entirely. I was ready. Ready to let the truth breathe in the open air. Ready to give Paul the gift he'd spent months earning without even knowing it. I came back inside, cheeks flushed from the winter air, and slipped back into the rhythm of the evening. Paul was telling a story about his last work trip, and everyone was laughing like it was just another charming tale. But I could see the edges of his smile, the way his eyes didn't quite meet mine. It was like he knew, somewhere deep down, that the ground beneath him was about to give way. I moved closer to the tree, fingers brushing the shiny wrapping paper, feeling the weight of the box I'd prepared. It was a gift, yes, but not the kind anyone was expecting. It was the truth, plain and undeniable, wrapped in pretty paper and tied with a bow. I could almost feel the way the room would shift when he opened it, the way every laugh would catch in their throats. The anticipation was a soft hum in my blood, a promise I was about to keep. I took a deep breath and let the warmth of the room wash over me one last time. My hands were steady, my heart clear. Paul didn't see it yet, but I was done carrying the weight of his secrets. And as the night drew closer to the moment I'd waited for, I felt a quiet certainty settle in my bones. I had one last gift to give, and it would change everything. The time had finally come. The Secret Santa game was in full swing, laughter bouncing around the room as each gift was unwrapped and admired. My nieces squealed over new scarves, my brother-in-law cracked jokes about his questionable tie, and Paul leaned back in his chair, perfectly at ease. I watched him with a calm that felt almost surreal, my breath steady, my hands folded loosely in my lap. He didn't know it yet, but his turn was about to be different from all the others. When it was finally Paul's time to unwrap his gift, I handed him the box with a gentle smile. My fingers brushed his, and for a second, I felt the tremor in his grip. That flicker of unease he tried to hide behind a confident grin. The room around us seemed to fade to a hush as he peeled back the layers of wrapping, the red satin bow slipping free. My heart beat slowly, each thud a quiet drum of resolve. I didn't rush him. I wanted him to savor every second of the unveiling. He opened the lid, and I saw the exact moment he realized what was inside. His face went pale, his breath caught in his throat. The laughter in the room fell away, replaced by a thick, heavy silence. He looked up at me with wide eyes, and I met his gaze with the same calm certainty I'd carried for weeks. "Are you surprised?" I asked, my voice soft but clear. "I was too when I discovered what you've been hiding." The room was frozen in that moment, everyone's eyes darting from Paul to me, then back to the open box in his hands. No one spoke. No one dared. My mother-in-law's hand flew to her mouth. My father-in-law shifted in his chair uncomfortably. But I didn't flinch. I wanted them to see it all, to see what I had seen for months. It wasn't about humiliating him. It was about setting myself free. Paul's lips parted like he wanted to speak, but no words came out. His fingers fumbled with the papers, the damning evidence of every secret he thought he'd buried deep. The photos, the texts, each one a crack in the perfect husband he'd pretended to be. I watched his face, saw the color drain from his cheeks, and felt no pity. He'd built this moment himself, every lie another brick in the wall that had finally come crashing down. I stayed quiet, letting the silence do the work for me. I could feel the weight of every eye in the room, the unspoken questions that hung in the air, but I didn't owe them any answers. This was between Paul and the truth didn't need any defense. I watched him swallow hard, his hands trembling as he tried to gather the papers, but they slipped through his fingers like water. It was done. There was no going back now. I stood there, hands at my sides, feeling the quiet power of the moment settle around me. Paul finally looked up, his mouth opening and closing like he was searching for the right excuse, but I didn't give him the chance. I didn't want to hear it, not tonight, not ever again. I let the truth hang between us like a living thing, bigger than any words he could offer. In that silence, I felt years of doubt and pain slip away, replaced by something stronger, something final. I could see the confusion and shock on the faces of the people we loved, but I didn't feel the need to explain. They could piece it together in their own time. This wasn't about them. It was about me finally stepping out of the shadows of his lies. I didn't need anyone to understand my choices or my quiet resolve. I only needed him to understand that his betrayal would never define me. I was done living in the echoes of his deceptions. I took one last look at him, the man I thought I'd known, the man I'd loved once. There was no hate in me, just a calm certainty that I was done. And as I turned away, I felt a lightness in my chest that I hadn't felt in months. I didn't need to hear him beg or see him crumble. I had given him the truth, and that was enough. No one moved. No one spoke. The truth needed no defense. The weight of the room fell away as I stepped back, my heart beating steady and calm. Paul stammered out half-formed excuses, his voice cracking as he tried to make sense of the mess he'd created. But I didn't flinch, didn't offer him the relief of my anger or the comfort of my forgiveness. I didn't need either of those things anymore. I gathered my things quietly, each movement deliberate, each breath a step closer to the life I knew I deserved. I thanked my family for the evening, my voice soft but unshaken. My mother-in-law looked at me with wide eyes, unsure of what to say, and I gave her a small, understanding smile. This wasn't her battle to fight, and I didn't need her pity. I could feel the warmth of the fire at my back as I turned toward the door, the last echo of laughter fading behind me. I didn't feel sadness. I felt free. Free from the lies, free from the weight of pretending. I walked out into the cold night air, the crisp winter chill filling my lungs like a promise. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. In that moment, I wasn't just walking away from Paul. I was walking toward myself. Each step felt like a quiet victory, each breath a little lighter than the one before. I didn't know exactly what waited for me tomorrow, but tonight, I knew one thing for sure. I had finally chosen myself. I got home and let the quiet of my apartment wrap around me like a soft blanket. No noise, no pretending, just the gentle hum of the heater and the flicker of candles I'd lit on the kitchen table. I made myself a cup of tea, watching the steam curl up like a sigh of relief. My hands didn't shake anymore. My breath was slow even. The storm had passed, and I was still standing. I sank into the couch, the weight of the day finally settling into something that felt like closure. There were no more secrets to carry, no more questions to ask. I wasn't waiting for him to explain or for me to forgive. I didn't need that kind of ending. I'd given him the truth, and in doing so, I'd given myself the gift of moving on. The world outside was still and cold, but inside, I felt a spark of something new, something hopeful. For the first time in a long time, I let myself smile, really smile. It was small, quiet, but it felt honest in a way I hadn't felt in months. I didn't know where this path would lead me, but I knew it was mine to walk. My heart didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt like it was finally my own. And as I sipped my tea, feeling the warmth spread through me, I knew one thing for certain. I was free. The night stretched out around me like a blank page, waiting for the first words of a new story. I curled up with my tea, feeling the calm in my chest settle deeper. No longer something fragile, but something solid and real. Paul's lies were just that now. Relics of a past I'd outgrown. I didn't need them anymore. I didn't need to hold on to the pieces of a life that had never really been mine. I thought about the woman I'd been, the one who waited, who doubted, who hoped he'd be the man he promised, and I let her go. I let go of the weight of all those years, the quiet heartbreak that had lived in the shadows of our home. In its place was a gentle resolve, a steady certainty that I would never again let someone else's choices define who I was. This freedom was mine, and I was going to hold on to it with everything I had. I took one last sip of tea, the steam warm against my face, and set the cup down with a small, content sigh. The night was quiet, and for the first time in what felt like forever, so was I. I didn't need to look back or question what had been. I didn't need to wonder if I'd done the right thing. Because I knew I hadn't just given him the truth. I'd given myself the chance to start again.